everyone. This is EJ Schultz, news editor at Ad Age, and welcome to our newest installment of our monthly look at purpose marketing hits and misses. Joining me is our regular guest, Thomas Kolster, who is the founder and creative director at Copenhagen-based Goodvertising Agency, which advises companies and organizations on how to turn environmental, societal, and health risks into market opportunities. Welcome, Thomas.
Thank you, EJ. Good to see you again.
So I'm realizing this is episode 13, which includes when we used to do this in podcast form. So it's a little bit of an unlucky number. So hopefully we'll survive it.
Don't say that. I was actually born on April 13th, and I kind of feel like I got a pretty okay life so far.
All right, let's knock on wood and keep going. And we'll start, as always, with our hits. Our first one comes from the nonprofit Rainforest Alliance, which puts a positive spin on the progress humans are making to solve the climate crisis by spotlighting individual acts such as composting uneaten food. Let's take a look.
I know you think you're changing the world with your electric car, but did you know 60% of all electricity is actually generated using fossil fuels? It's a joke. Real change won't come from you composting your bits and bobs. Not 100% recyclable. 5 to 7 gallons per flush emits carbon. And those certification seals? Just a scam where they can charge 100 times more for a banana that's sustainably farmed, whatever that means.
Yes, electric grids still need to get much cleaner before EVs are truly emissions-free. But last year, worldwide spending on carbon-free energy passed $1 trillion, which means for the first time ever, we spend as much on clean energy as we did on fossil fuels. And this.
Not many people realize, but many countries, including Sweden, Brazil, and Nepal, get 90% of their energy from low-carbon sources.
So, we're getting there.
So this ad takes a positive approach. You know, we've seen a lot of these nonprofits have tended to go the negative side and paint these disasters that will occur, right? If we don't do enough now. They're taking the opposite approach. Why do you like it?
I mean, to be honest, the bar was pretty high. One of my absolute favorite pieces all time in this space is a piece they made some years ago called Follow the Frog, exactly the same director, Max Joseph. So I was super excited when this piece came out. You know, even though it has a bit of sort of infomercial side to it with all these things that you ought to do, and I think we're all pretty clear what needs to happen in terms of the environmental actions. I think what they actually get away with really, really well is talking to the climate anxiety that I think a lot of people right now are experiencing. So I think the insight as well, and it's spot on, it's funny. So it's a lot of those things that we keep actually mentioning each and every time in this podcast. You know, the positive side. It's fun, and there's a great human insight behind it.
And the male character sort of brings to life this skeptic voice probably inside of all of us, which is like, does this really do anything, these small acts? And they sort of use that right as a foil.
It's almost like having that angel and the devil on the shoulder, and I think it's something we can all recognize. And yeah, to be honest, obviously it spreads in the intent action gap in a lot of these things, and I think the commercial gets that right. And obviously, it's pretty easy. It's just picking up that Rainforest Alliance labeled banana, and we are good.
It's a lengthier ad. You know, we stopped it midway through, but we'll try to post it on adage.com so folks can watch the full thing. Up next is an effort for a British newspaper, The Guardian, which asserts its editorial independence by plugging its reader-funded model with a campaign called Not for Sale, and it comes from the agency Lucky Generals. Let's watch the ad, which features all the ways the newspaper's content is consumed.
Opened. closed. Often attacked, staunchly defended.
That sounds it. And you're not listening to That's me. Enough. That's quite enough.
Feared.
No.
Ranted about. Raved about. Used. Abused. Devoured. Digested. Shared. 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 Taken to bed. Taken to heart. Taken to court. But thanks to reader funding, never owned.
So some nice pithy copywriting there. I enjoyed the abused line with the dog. But I'm wondering, this comes as mainstream media is under attack and for multiple angles. Will this do much to move the needle for The Guardian, do you think?
I like this piece, and obviously we've through the years seen a lot of award-winning work from newspapers, but I think this is such an important time to shine a light on the importance of journalism. And I think a key pillar in that is obviously that here's a newspaper that's not for sale. There's no sort of commercial interest behind it, and I think that's a story that comes across as very authentic and very honest. Again, two things that I really think is important in this space where we talk about sustainability and purpose. So I think they nail it, and I think it's very true to what The Guardian stands for in general. And as you go online, they're always very good at sort of prompting you to actually support their journalistic efforts. So yes, journalism needs us now more than ever, and I think this campaign highlights that really, really well.
I thought they did a great job of kind of squeezing a lot of information or examples of the importance of journalism into an ad without sort of being overly preachy. And like I say, it goes back to the writing. It's really good writing.
Yeah, and it's honest, right? It's like it's not being too salesy. This is communication. It doesn't feel like advertising. It respects us, and again, I feel Guardian has that respect for readers as well. So I think that shines through this piece of work.
All right, we're going to stay in the UK for our next ad, which comes from Uber, and it's meant to raise awareness about how you can use Uber to book train service. Ads show people awkwardly treating a train booking just like they might treat a car booking. Let's take a look.
Hi, pick up for Mark going to Portsmouth?
This is going to Portsmouth, yeah?
You can drop me anywhere near the station.
Well, drop you at the station.
Perfect. Just one more coming and then we're ready to go.
All right.
Hey. Ready?
Trains, now on Uber.
So I guess this ad fits our purpose category because it's somewhat promoting sustainable train transportation. But what did you like overall about the spot?
I think there's a lot of things that I like about this. I mean, in a time where a lot of brands are doing a lot of virtue signaling and talking about what they do around climate, I think the Uber sort of succeeds normalizing this, and I would probably even see this as a second step in their efforts. One of the things they began doing in the UK was that they actually showed when you're ordering the Uber that you could take the tube, the underground instead, and the price of that. And I think now they've gone into the train space, and they're not sort of drumming the climate drum too hard. I think they take a sort of very insightful, clever approach. They don't need to tell us that the train is more environmentally friendly. We know that. So I think they get a lot of things right. It's convenient, it's easy, and in that way, I think Uber really connects with all of us, no matter our political beliefs. So I think they really do this very, very well.
This is probably worth a separate conversation, but I'm sort of wondering what the reaction from Uber drivers is for them promoting this type of transportation, right? Because you could be taking money out of the pockets of the car drivers.
Yeah, I think that there probably is always a lot of fears around that. I think the thing is, Uber is that alternative quite often when you're late for work or when it's more convenient. And I think it's actually not going to really, take away much business from them. Actually, quite the opposite. I think they'll actually right now both get cars, trains into the portfolio. So I think this is probably part of a wider strategy of Uber to obviously own moving you from A to Z, which is something we see with car companies as well at the moment.
And of course, trains are much more normalized in Europe than they are here in the US, for better or worse.
That is good. That is good contact. Yes, exactly. You do actually have the choice of going to Heathrow Airport by car and Uber or by train. Yes, that's very, very true.
All right, moving on. A provocative ad we're going to look at here, I guess, to say the least. It comes from another British ad. It comes from Channel 4 media brand over there, which promotes its Change Climate Season programming with an ad that features executives dancing in their underwear, and it sort of spirals from there. Let's watch this one and then talk about it.
Welcome aboard. Our flight time today will be 14 minutes. Bring it back to flow, give it back to flow, give it back to flow, back to flow, give it back to flow, give it back to flow, back to flow, give it back to flow, give it to flow, give it back to flow.
And as you can see, record profits in the third quarter.
Bring it back to flow, give it back to flow, 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 give it to flow, give it back to flow, back to flow, give it to.
We're worried about our carbon footprint. But are those with power doing enough about their carbon skid mark? To change climate season, watch now on Channel 4.
So I neglected to say we're in our Mrs. category here. You didn't like this one, and can you tell me why?
I mean, if they had featured Biden doing dance moves, I might have felt compelled to give it a hit. I kind of feel like it's one long sort of music video without any real insight. I do applaud Channel 4 for the climate programming. That's absolutely great. I just don't feel that it really does touch me. And I mean, we've seen this sort of oil analogy being played out before. I think last episode, an episode before that, we talked about Greenpeace, and they had this commercial where you saw this stadium being flooded by oil, obviously for pointing out the connection between sports and big oil. Yeah, it just didn't connect. It's one of those classic sort of more lifestyle-oriented pieces of work that is quite a bit tiring, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm glad you said it. I was going to bring up this. It's like everyone's kind of using the same playbook. It's like, well, let's use oil and put it somewhere weird. And this is the weirdest spot. We've seen it.
we had one from a fashion retailer, I think in episode 2 as well. So yeah, I mean, don't overuse these cliches. It feels contrived, and I think especially it's so obvious that they try to cater to a young target audience, but I think they'll turn their back on this sort of metaphors and yeah.
All right, on to our next miss. Comes from General Electric, which is in the process of splitting into 3 companies named GE Healthcare, GE Aerospace, and GE Vernova. And Vernova will house its energy business. And a new ad from BBDO called Beautiful Law promotes the aerospace and Vernova businesses by using a physics lesson. And let's watch.
The first law of thermodynamics states that energy cannot be created or destroyed. but it can be passed on to the next generation.
So I feel like there's a significant number of people out there that are probably going to like this ad. It's nicely produced, sort of epic style, but why doesn't it connect for you, Thomas?
You know, the first law of communication is don't do greenwashing. I think it's, you know, it's cinematic, it's epic. The grass, the windmills, it's all these classic symbols of greenwashing. I mean, if you look at what GE Vernova is obviously doing, besides the sustainable or renewable energy business, obviously also have gas turbines. If you look at the aeronautics business, it's obviously doing jet engines, as we also do see in this ad. And we see a lot of flight shaming these days. So I think GE could have taken a much more honest approach to some of the challenges we are seeing in terms of decarbonizing gas, decarbonizing airlines. So this doesn't at all connect with me, and it's a shame that we still see this type of communication in 2023.
So what's the answer though for big conglomerates, big companies like this that are sort of, they do have programs, right, that they're trying to become more environmental. It's kind of hard to turn around a massive company and flip a switch like that. Are you suggesting they just, as they're doing this, just not do advertising until they're like further along, or what's the answer?
I would absolutely love them to see advertising. I would absolutely love them to tell me what they are doing and how they are decarbonizing the airline industry, or how they are thinking about phasing out gas and going to renewable energy. I get none of those answers at all. And I think sort of pulling in the young new generation in all of this, I'm pretty sure that I would know what Greta Thunberg and young people across the world would say to this type of advertising. So be honest about it. GE had been on a long journey. They were part of my first book, Goodvertising. I acknowledge what they're doing. It's just not the type of work we should be seeing in 2023. Got
it. Okay, well, we have our last miss of today's episode. It comes from LG, which in a new ad from TBWA Day, New York, and it features 3 people as they use LG home appliances to live a life that's a little more green. The spot is called Better Choices Make a Better World. It uses sort of a mixed media approach with some live action, 3D modeling, and animation. Let's watch it. A couple quick thoughts before I turn it over to you. When I was originally watching this, it sort of, the look and feel of it reminded me a lot of the Chipotle work, you know, with the farmer. They've done a couple of those that are generally well received. And then secondly, this ad is a similar theme to the first ad we looked at, in the sense of sort of promoting simple things you can do to fix the environment with a more positive spin. But this one doesn't click for you, Thomas. Can you explain why?
I mean, as you mentioned, there's a lot of good stuff they're actually doing in this ad. First up, as you say, they take a positive approach. I think this is important in a world with a lot of doom and gloom communication, and where a lot of young people and are feeling climate anxiety. Secondly, this idea of not doing virtue signaling, I think, is something that they do well. So actually giving us and showcasing sustainable choices that we could do in our everyday, I think is something that other brands should look towards. What they get wrong, though, is that I kind of feel that it's like a PSA for a 6-year-old. Some of those things that they ask us to do are already things that we know. It's kind of like my mom nagging me constantly to remember to put down that toilet seat. So I think that's my biggest beef with this, that they don't tell us something new, which is also a theme that we have explored in some of the other episodes. When you go on this journey of changing choices, tell us something new, something we didn't know, open our eyes, or make it very, very easy for us, as, for example, Uber does in their product, where they add trains to the portfolio of transport choices that you can take. So 2 things they get right: the positive things, giving us choices, but the tonality and the choices that they showcase becomes a little bit too banal. So probably like just in between hits and misses.
Got it. Do you think, as you were explaining that, I was wondering, how Tide had that huge push on washing with cold water? Yeah. Do you consider that? I mean, it's slightly intuitive, but then not something people maybe think at the top of their mind, and that might be considered something that's a little bit more about sharing some new information. Just curious if an example of sharing new information that works that you've seen in the past.
It's I'm happy that you bring up Tide. I think it's change behaviors takes time, and I think for a lot of people out there, they still don't realize that we can today wash at 30 degrees or even down at 20 degrees thanks to enzymes. I think if you're stuck in sort of like my mom or my dad, for that sake, that still can remember those days where you had to wash at 60 or 90 to get your clothes fully clean. So I think there is still a communication effort, and we need to acknowledge that it does take time on some of these topics. I just think that some of the stuff that LG sort of outlines in this becomes a little bit too banal, and maybe it's also the choice of this sort of cartoonish universe that, as you say, in Chipotle, when they had their back to the start piece of work in 2010, 2011, which won a Grand Prix in Cannes, was an amazing piece of work. There's something about the tone of voice that just doesn't fit this. It makes a child is a PSA for 6-year-old people. Yeah.
All right. We'll have to leave it there. I enjoyed the conversation as usual, Thomas.
Thank you, EJ. So much to talk about.
We'll be back in about another month, and I have a feeling we might have some holiday work to review by then. I mean, there's plenty already out, so I'm sure you're churning through all that as we speak. But again, I want to thank Thomas Kolster, as the founder and creative director at Copenhagen-based Goodvertising Agency. This is EJ Schultz, news editor at Ad Age. And I also want to give a special shout out to our producer, Lauren Ciardio. And again, remind everyone to stay tuned for our next episode next month. We'll catch you next time. Thank you.